and welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. Matt Dudek, of course, is on his whirlwind tour still, so joining us instead is John Parker.
Hey, Bob. Thanks so much for having me.
John, of course, is our primary writer over at HorizonRoundtable.com. You can find him on Twitter at JJParker084, and you can find the podcast on Twitter, as always, at HorizonRT. John, so I guess we should be happy that the top four seeds have made it to Indy. And I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, maybe it's a mild bit of surprise, all things considered. I mean, you know, the original, the first games obviously had, kind of no surprise. Oakland beat Cleveland State. Cleveland State couldn't score. Oakland scored, jumped out of the gym. And Youngstown State beat Milwaukee. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody either. And then, of course, we had Green Bay, who ends up winning, beating, we got Green Bay who won, who had the single bye, of course.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they beat Oakland, and UIC, who beat the crap out of IUPUI, advances against Youngstown State. Well, I don't think we'll talk a little bit later about Youngstown State. I don't think we're done seeing them yet, but I did want to kind of talk a little bit about the fact that, I mean, if you saw any little bit of that IUPUI UIC first round game,
oh my God.
What? I mean, it was the perfect storm of UIC not being able to do anything wrong, and IUPUI just, I don't want to say give up, but damn, it looked like it gave up.
Hey, at least they did better than Northern Kentucky did the last time they played UIC.
That's true.
Their halftime UIC.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know about that. It kind of looked like, man.
UIC's halftime score was Northern Kentucky's final score. IUPUI did a little better than that.
A little better than that. I mean, I think
a little.
I really think UIC was looking for the chalupa at the end of that game, getting that 100 points for the free chalupa. They did not get it though. But I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I don't know. You look at and like I said, we'll talk about the second round games and kind of what's going on a little later on. But you look at IUPUI, and it just seemed to me that the only name I really heard that stood out that entire time was Grant Weatherford. I mean, say what you will about the team as a whole, it just seems to me that Weatherford seemed to be the guy who was still trying to keep everybody together, and it just wasn't working. It was just I know we've kind of piled on IUPUI the last couple of actually entire season we piled on them, but the way they went out was just sad. I don't think I even have the strength to make fun of them. It was just sad.
Yeah,
it really. I mean, how is it? I mean, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of how exactly. So, I mean, seriously, I mean, with the, with guys who are that good, with a team that has that kind of talent, you had an all Horizon League player in Marcus Burke. Jalen Manette did Jalen Manette get anything? I don't think he got anything this year.
No, no, he didn't.
Which is actually kind of surprising.
Third team.
Which is kind of surprising. I'm pretty sure I had him on second team, but that's just me. You had an all-defensive player in Elijah Goss, and then they just get trucked in the first round of the conference tournament. And what makes it even worse is the fact that this is the same team that really made a go of it the last couple of games of the season, because they went and surprised Oakland and almost got another win out of Detroit Mercy. And
I mean, that's the inconsistency that definitely on the power rankings had them the whole year. I was saying, hey, if they get one of those games, they could win their first round game, but don't count on it.
No. And UIC has been kind of herky-jerky too, and they always have been. Although I will say, obviously, UIC has made a much better effort in the second half of the
half
season.
of the league. Yeah,
They absolutely have. I think UIC has obviously made a much better effort during the conference season than they did the non-conference. And again, that might, as I've mentioned multiple times, that may be that what if they had the whole squad the whole entire year? Would it be better? Maybe.
maybe.
Maybe. But the bottom line is that, UIC came in and did exactly what a team that I believe has the best backcourt in the conference should do. And this just wax on, wax off on IUPUI. That was it. I mean, just killed them. So with that said, now comes the waiting game. So it's pretty clear that Byron Rim is probably not going to be he's just the interim. He's probably not going to be the permanent replacement.
Yeah.
Unless something strange happens. This is the Horizon League, so you never know.
Hey, maybe. But yeah, I mean, he kind of got thrown into just a rough situation with,
But
I know.
The question is, should it have been a rough a situation? Looking at the talent on that roster.
Well, but it's really top end talent. They have great top end talent.
Yeah.
But
and I have to add top end talent that I believe could have paced them to a lot more wins in the conference than it actually did. I believe that. I truly believe that that team is infinitely way too talented to only win 3 freaking games. I mean, that's just that's. I mean, I understand it was a no-win situation, but you would have thought they would have outshot their way into at least more than 3 wins this season. But that's what I mean, that's my opinion. That's what I think. But
and
I don't know.
Kind of, I don't know. Compared to the rest of the league, I would say. I mean, obviously their top 2 are phenomenal. I do really like Goss. Weatherford too.
They got a great freshman in Mike DePersia. I think he did pretty good when he got his shots. Unfortunately, obviously with that backcourt, he wasn't going to get too many of them.
Yeah, I loved a lot of what I saw from DePersia.
Yeah.
Kind of for what's going forward. It's kind of like Courtney Brown at Milwaukee. It's like, okay, there's some shakiness, but like you see flashes, and it's like, okay, if that gets consistent, this is going to be fun.
Exactly. And so, but you see all of those, and then it translates into a season that ends so badly.
Yeah.
I mean, so the couple of questions that were not resolved last week and possibly I think maybe IUPUI is waiting until after the tournament is over to kind of make some decisions, and the university is not the only one who's in decision-making mode. You got to remember, of course, we have a lot of IUPUI players who can potentially grad transfer this year. After this year, Marcus Burke. I think we're on Marcus Burke watch. I think.
Yeah, I know. Matt tweeted out that highlight video that just kind of popped up late in the regular season.
We got tagged on that, by the way. We got tagged on that highlight video. That's how we get. So I was like, oh, okay. Is there a reason you're tagging us on it?
Oh,
we're gonna say something about it, right?
That part. That feels like I mean, it felt like a highlight reel as is, but.
But you tagged us in it, so. Well, I don't know. I mean, no, to be fair, they actually did tag a couple of other people connected with the university, one of them being one of their assistant coaches, I believe, got tagged in that too. Okay. But if he also is not going to be there, I mean, I don't know. But I think the big thing is going to be I really think that it just seems to me like a situation where I don't see him being there next year. I don't see him being there next year. I do, however, see Grant Weatherford being there next year.
Okay. Yeah.
I However, I also, in addition to Marcus Burke not being there, I also do not see Elijah Goss being there next year.
With him being a redshirt junior, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. As for everybody else, I think there's 3 other guys who could potentially grad transfer. Not saying that they actually would.
Yeah.
But I think one of them is actually hurt, so I don't think he would. I can't remember which one now, but I mean, theoretically, all of them could be back. Zoe Tyson is not coming back. He's a grad transfer in his own right, so he's definitely not coming back.
Yeah.
DePergil will stick around another year. I don't know about Jalen Minette should come back next year.
That'll be interesting because when Milwaukee had its actually the first of its mass exodus as a result of coaching situation after Rob Jeter was fired, I felt that Jordan Johnson was the best of our returning players. Akeem Springs winds up in the NCAA tournament as an at-large or with an at-large team, Minnesota. Yep. Austin Arians winds up in the NCAA tournament with an at-large team, Wake Forest. Two power conferences, and then Johnson follows Rob Jeter to UNLV, which was just as big a mess. And I don't know if maybe he had bigger offers and just chose to follow his coach and to be with the guy who brought him there in the first place.
Yeah.
But you look at a pair of teams that, were at large. I mean, they ended NCAA tournament droughts with, Arians and Springs either starting or in, key bench roles.
Yeah.
And then Johnson is playing for just a dumpster fire. And the first 2 were grad transfers, and Johnson was a sit one, play one, like Minette would be. So if, it's a situation where it impacts his ability to transfer up, I could definitely see him not jumping at that. I mean, if, hey, maybe loves Indy, doesn't want to go, and Butler doesn't offer, I could see him staying put.
Sure. No, I get it. By the way, one of the other ones, I believe, looks like Isaiah Williams. I think Isaiah Williams was the for IUPUI. I think he's the one who got hurt.
Yeah. Yep.
He got hurt, and then the other 2 are Jacoby Kemp, who played sparingly, if I recall, and who was the other one? Oh yeah, here we go. The other, it's. So that is the 3. There was I think Jacoby Kemp, I think he only he did not average too many minutes. I remember that, at least. And then, who was the other one? The other one was Jameel Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Jameel Jackson was the other one. And I can't remember I don't remember how many minutes he played this year. I thought he was starting, honestly, but so hard to keep up with. I don't even. It's so hard to keep up with. But Bob, you do a Horizon League podcast. You should be keeping up with all of this stuff. I know. That's why I have you, John, so you can keep up with this stuff. Well, it turns out neither of us are holding up. Yeah. So Jameel Jackson, his last game. Actually, I think Jameel Jackson got hurt too, because I think he got hurt right after the Cleveland State game.
Yeah.
So Jameel Jackson, Jameel Jackson and Isaiah Williams both get hurt. You have Jacoby Kemp, who played sporadically, and so and if you look at kind of the stats for IUPUI, you had 3 guys. Their entire backcourt averaged what, 30. At least 35, 36 minutes a game at a minimum for all 3 of them.
Yep.
Between the 3 of them. And then the front court, you had kind of a healthy – you had Zoe Tyson and – I mean, what are you supposed to do with that, honestly? I mean, you had those 3 – you had all of those guys basically – you had all 3 of those guys basically averaging almost 40 minutes a game. I mean, if you look at it, because I'm looking at it right now. In fact, let's see here. So Marcus Burke averaged 34.9 minutes a game. Jalen Bennett 35.3. Grant Weatherford 30.4. Elijah Goss averaged 31.1. Isaiah Williams, before he got hurt, was averaging 20 minutes a game. Yep. And then Zoe Tyson came in and replaced him. I mean, and then Jamil Jackson also. I mean, and you had a situation with IUPUI where you had guys who were playing a lot. I mean, a lot. I mean, between their starting five probably played more minutes, probably played as many minutes as anybody during the last half of the season. So yeah, I mean, they were not running it could be like the last game before the conference tournament. Let me just put it to you this way. So yeah, you had. Wow, that is insane. They had a 7-man rotation.
Yeah.
IUPUI, when they played the last game of the regular season against Detroit Mercy, IUPUI had a 7-man rotation where they had Tyson, Goss, Manette, Burke, Weatherford, Mike DePersia, the first guy off the thing, and then Tavion White had, I think he played a minute that game. Oh. So I mean, realistically, they were running with a 6-man rotation. I mean, yeah, and you can't expect to win. Definitely. I mean, you can't really necessarily expect to win in the games when you're. It was a no. It legitimately is a no-win situation. What is a no-win situation for IUPUI? I mean, these guys ran out of gas. I mean, that's the bottom line. They ran out of gas because you got 2 guys that are hurt. But also, as you mentioned, their talent is kind of top heavy. And again, since they're all averaging 30-plus minutes a game, they're all going to run out of gas, which is exactly what happened.
That's kind of where
it didn't really make a difference against Oakland.
Yeah, that's kind of where their issues over the summer for me hit. With Cameron Justice transferring, with
Calvin Temple.
Yes, he transferred after Gardner, but they had a guy transfer to Marion College, Nick Rogers, I want to say.
Nick Rogers.
And basically that's, obviously Justice would have played a ton of minutes too, but, those other guys, the depth,
then the problem then becomes, and now you have at least 6 of these guys that could potentially grad transfer out. I mean, so you take a bad situation and somehow you could theoretically make it worse. because now you have, this could get severely ugly next year, because if you get Marcus Burke leaving, if you get Elijah Goss leaving, Zoe Tyson's already gone. If Jamil Jackson and Isaiah Williams, for one reason or another, decide that they don't want to be there anymore, maybe Grant Weatherford changes his mind. I'm not saying he will, but possibly. If you got, we're not out of the realm of the possibility of any of these things happening. And if you even have half of those guys leaving, on top of Zoe Tyson leaving leaving because he's graduating. And who do you have coming in? And who do you have coming in the face of the fact that you don't know who the head coach is going to be next year? Now, don't get me wrong. It does look like that Byron Rim and his coaching staff are still operating under the assumption that they will be here next year. But what happens in the event that he's not the coach anymore? What happens then?
Yeah,
that's a good question. That's a good question that, and I don't think anybody at IUPUI is able to can actually answer that question. I mean, and this is why I think it would be this is why I really think it would be in IUPUI's best interest to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, because time is of the essence for them. And they need to kind of make some decisions that will put them in a better situation next year.
Yeah.
Because now it doesn't look good for them.
And that's where another one of their
and we absolutely we talk about this over and over again. We need to in order for this conference to get better, every school has to get better. And where IUPUI is right now, I don't see it.
The one spot where I could understand kind of waiting it out is, we've kind of talked about this online and messages and whatnot. If they're going to up their salary to the range of like what Dennis Gates is getting, because Jason Gardner was barely even above half that.
It's just crazy. By the way, for those scoring at home, Dennis Gates' base salary is $280 a year.
Yeah.
And by the way, worth every penny. Every penny.
Gardner was at 156. I believe it was last year, might have been the year before.
That's insane.
Yeah, so
that's insane.
Upping that salary, I could understand it, because then maybe you're waiting for coach to finish their regular season or finish their season. If that's what you're offering, then you're not really looking at like a Big Ten assistant or anything. You're looking at, I mean, maybe a D2 guy. Like, I know Stan Gerard in town. UIndy is doing pretty well this year. I think they're like top 15 in the nation, and they're private, so it's hard to say. But just based on kind of comparable schools, that's probably a situation where they could afford him.
Possibly. So I'm on verbal commits right now. As of right now, they have a letter of intent from Sadadrian Hall, who's a power forward. They have a letter of intent for him. They also have a verbal from Azaria Say. So they have two guys who potentially could come in. But again, the problem is that on the junior front, they have seven guys on scholarship who are juniors: Weatherford, Minette, Burke, Jamil Jackson, Jacoby Kemp, Elijah Goss, and Isaiah Williams. So I was off. There were 7 of them there. There are 7 of them. Now, 6 of them could theoretically, 6 of them are red shirts. So theoretically, each of those 6 of them could grad transfer or do whatever. Again, I'm not saying any or all of them going to do it, but there's a possibility there. And you want to add in the extra wrinkle of Jalen Minette, who, if the NCAA decides, okay, we're going to let everybody do a one-time waiver, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Minette would find his way somewhere else so quickly your head would spin. And again, seriously. And again, that is why timing is of the essence for IUPUI. And I know we've talked way too much about IUPUI for one podcast. Again, but in order for them to kind of right the ship, they have to get to a point. And I said this last year when Cleveland State fired Dennis Felton in July. They had to get things together in quick order, and they picked a guy who was able to get everything in quick order in Dennis Gates. So IUPUI needs the same thing, only now they have it's March. Their season is done. It's early March. So they could. You're absolutely right. They could look down the road to U of Indy. I know you've mentioned Benji Taylor, who is now currently the head coach at Division II Tuskegee.
19 wins at Chicago State. 19 wins in a year at Chicago State. Come on, man. Yeah. He was the interim at Hawaii. Went 21-13. I just feel he's been getting the raw deal.
I know you're holding out for Benji Taylor. I still believe if it's going to be somebody who can work with more with less, it's going to be Tracy Dildy, the current assistant at Detroit Mercy.
But they could go hire him now.
They really could. Actually, you know what? Honestly, they could hire both of them now. Either one right now, because both of their seasons are over.
Yep.
There's, theoretically. So my concern is that that IUPUI will do what every other school does in this conference, is get some high major assistant that and it's always such a mixed bag with that, though, because
Right
for every Dennis Gates, you get a Jason Gardner or I'm sorry to say, a Pat Baldwin, who's fair to middling.
Hey, just wait until his kid commits. We'll be fine.
Sure, Jan. But on the flip side, and I want to talk about this a lot more because obviously UIC is in the semis. I still maintain that, and I still maintain that Steve McLean has really saved his. I think when Steve McLean beat both Northern Kentucky and Wright State, I think he saved his season. I think once he did that, I think he was in the clear. But somebody thinks otherwise.
Yeah, but that guy thinks Brian Wardle's getting fired.
So yeah, so I want to actually talk a little bit about because this one is such a head scratcher. Just because I can. So right before we're getting a little convergence here, mostly because of the fact that a lot of this talked a little bit about the Missouri Valley. This guy was talking specifically about the Missouri Valley Conference, which Jim O'Donnell from the Daily Herald that's in the Chicago suburbs, correct? If I'm not mistaken. So this gentleman, I mean, his whole thing was. He started out with talking. His primary focus of the column was obviously Missouri Valley Conference. He's obviously not a fan of Brian Wardle. Called him Baby Man. That was actually pretty funny. And of course, what was it? 3 days later, this is on March 4th, and then we're recording on Sunday, and of course, Brian Wardle and Bradley are heading to the NCAA tournament again. Okay, so that worked out well.
So, I don't think he's getting fired.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting fired. Yeah, you can't fire a guy who's going to go to the NCAA tournament. In fact, now his name is bantied about to take over for take over at DePaul, and which is like the textbook definition of failing up. But I'm diverging away from. I want to talk specific because he did mention he had a paragraph in this particular column in which he said that Steve McLean was all but tostado. I mean, and he used the word tostado, and I got hungry actually. I was thinking I needed some Taco Bell or something. But yeah, so. Essentially, I don't think he's going anywhere. I still don't think he's going anywhere.
No, and I agree. I don't see it. A game shy of matching preseason expectations. I do get that they did just have the athletic director change, but hey, maybe he just puts it all to bed and wins the conference. And
so, well, I'm glad you brought that up because the Final Four is, of course, the top four seeds, where we have we have Wright State playing UIC, and we have Green Bay playing Northern Kentucky. The issue here is both of those pairings split the regular season. Wright State and IUPUI, they split the season. And Green Bay and Northern Kentucky split the season. So I don't want to scare everybody, but I'm going to. But I think there is a possibility, albeit remote, that we could theoretically be looking at a UIC Green Bay final. And I'm just going to scare the crap out of all Wright State and Northern Kentucky fans right now. And I don't mean to, but I want you to be prepared for this scenario because it's possible.
Than UIC and Loyola in Cleveland.
Oh,
So.
Jesus. No. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. If it's either UIC or Green Bay, we're talking Dayton play-in territory at that
Oh, for
point.
sure.
At that
Absolutely.
point, which means, of course, I'm going to have to, because this week we have Kyle Craven in Indianapolis covering the tournament for us.
You would just leave.
Yeah, and hey, Kyle, would you like to go up to Dayton to cover the play-in game? Will the NCAA let us? Probably not, but you never know. I mean, what kind of a nightmare scenario would that be if that was the case? Which is why, if as much as I would enjoy the chaos of having having two 500 teams potentially be the conference tournament champion, we should really be erring on the side of caution and hoping that Wright State and Northern Kentucky are the two one or the other is one of the two teams that makes it into the tournament. And realistically, it's probably, but man, I don't know. Especially the way that UIC has been playing lately. I just don't know.
If Purdue Fort Wayne wins a couple more, you could send Kyle, and then he'd be covering 2 Horizon League schools.
Oh, Jesus, I forgot about that. As of right now, yeah, you're absolutely right. As of right now, Purdue Fort Wayne, who, by the way, will be in the Horizon League next year, is surviving and advancing in the Summit League tournament, which is a freaking miracle in and of itself. By the way, I'd like to point out the fact that Purdue Fort Wayne, which we thought was a better idea than IUPUI to join the league, finished in 7th in the Summit League. Yeah, so that's what's happening.
6 wins in a better league, I'll take it.
Great. Yeah, no. Again, textbook definition of failing up. Or failing sideways, I don't know.
Yeah, we're just kind of
so that's going to be. But yeah, I mean, I want everybody to just kind of brace themselves for this possibility. I don't want it to happen. I don't think it would. With the way this league, the way this conference has been all season, it would be par for the course if it actually did happen. It would make so much sense, because it's just been pretty much a quagmire the whole entire season anyway. That it would only be poetic justice that a UIC or a Green Bay, neither of which is, they'll be, now theoretically, if both of them win, both of them will be theoretically above 500 at that point. But yeah, I don't know, man. I as much as I want to root for the chaos, especially as much as I want to root for the chaos, I really don't. I really don't. I mean, I'm just like, just let it end. Please, for the love of God, just be that team. Yeah, right now UIC is 17-16. So if UIC makes it to the finals and somehow upsets Wright State, they will be 18-16, and they will be going up against a Green Bay team that I believe is currently 500, would be one game above 500 going into the finals, if that actually did happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying just in case. I do, but I don't know why I keep harping on this, because it would be such an amazingly crazy thing for that to all kind of all shake out. And again, I wouldn't put it past, the way things have gone for that to actually happen. But at the same time, you have a Wright State team and you have a Northern Kentucky team that are, they're built for this. They're built for this type of thing. So, and they also both have the double bye, so they've had a little bit more rest than everybody else. Whether that all plays out the way it should, who knows? Crossing fingers it doesn't, but I mean, but you know what? I will say this, and I'm sorry. Green Bay is 17 and currently 17-15. So what would happen is, if Green Bay and UIC won, Green Bay would be 18-15, and UIC would be 18-16. I don't know, man. I think the way that I want to say that it should be a much easier path for Northern Kentucky and Green Bay. I mean, Wright State, given how they have played down the stretch, specifically Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky gave Wright State all it wanted in that season finale.
Yeah.
And I think given the makeup of both of those teams, now that Northern Kentucky is fully healthy, now that Wright State has always been pretty stacked the whole time. And I don't see that it shouldn't be that way. But again, for whatever reason, UIC gives Wright State headaches. It did all season. It did this season. I don't know. It seems like yeah. I don't know. Do we root for the chaos or no? I don't want to root for the chaos.
I don't know.
So, with that said, well, and I want to get because of these, and by the way, and because of these two teams, now that they're both kind of above 500, even if they both lose, then comes the next question: obviously do they make their way into a CIT? As it sounds like Youngstown State will be doing.
Yep.
You really do? You think that Green Bay and UIC will go into the CIT? So, I don't know about UIC. Green Bay probably.
Yeah, that's possibly the interesting thing. For me, like, I think if as someone who is a fan, I don't really care about the CBI or CIT. I think it's good for the players, obviously with the financial, having to buy your way in. Some universities might not want to do that. Where I think it's particularly advantageous is when you have a younger team, when you have a lot of your guys coming back. It seems like a lot of kind of the recent teams that made deep runs in the tournament from mid-major leagues did so after it was like CBI, then NIT, then NCAA tournament, and now your guys are, seniors and you're going to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So I'm a big
fan
of, like, as a team taking that opportunity. When it's a situation where you've got a bunch of seniors who'd be playing, I don't know, maybe not as much. But
good question.
In that instance, especially if I think Youngstown got a home game. If you have a home game, like, yeah, you can give your seniors a send-off after you find out they're not going to the tourney. That's cool.
Sure. Now, in Youngstown State's case, and I think in their case, I think it is more the latter, that they're a young team that that Youngstown State and Jared Calhoun wants to get a little bit tighter together for this will be kind of prep for next season because Youngstown State only has 2 seniors on that team in Donnell Cathcart and 6th Man of the Year Devin Morgan. And I think in their case, I think it makes a lot of sense because I think from just taking this year as kind of that from what we've learned of Youngstown State this year, is that this is a team that definitely has a lot of upside for next year. Because they have their core coming back. They have an all-defensive player like Garrett Covington coming back. They've got a Naz Bohannon coming back, who, by the way, got hosed big time in the year-end awards. You got a guy like Darius Quisenberry coming back. So you got all those, and you definitely have a lot of good other components coming back. So when you look at it, why wouldn't you take advantage of potentially not only getting one more game under their belts, but a home game at that? Which, let's face it, if it's at the Beagley Center, the frickin' House of Heart Attacks, why wouldn't you want to do that? That's going to be no matter who they play, it's going to be a barn burner.
And the only thing would be, yeah, that is true.
Exactly.
The only thing would be the cost. And I mean, it sounds like they're, willing to go for it, which is awesome.
Which is by the way totally out of character for Youngstown State. No, seriously, it is. I mean, I think it's
yeah, with paying Calhoun $200,000 a year base salary, and then dropping what is it, like almost $50,000 to host the game?
Something like that, yeah.
Hey, more power to you.
But yeah, that's it. But it's funny. But but that part is kind of the caveat. But also too, and I think for me, for also too, I think it's for especially for Youngstown State. I think the opportunity to I keep forgetting. Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of guys on there that you could definitely. They definitely want to get more playing time for, like a Michael Akuche, like a Jameer Thomas, definitely a Jelani Simmons.
Yeah.
All those guys, to get them in and get them some extra minutes for one more game. But also too, and this is, I think this from a psychological standpoint would be far more advantageous for Youngstown State. Youngstown State would have the opportunity to win a 19th game. And to put it in perspective, Youngstown State has only won 19 games 3 times since they've been a Division I school. 3 times.
Yeah.
And how many? And care to guess how long they've been a Division I school, John?
All the 21st century. Since the 90s, I think, right? Like 40, early 90s?
Approximately 40 years they've been a Division I school. Almost 40 years they've been. Wow. Yeah, exactly. I actually had to look this up like 3 times because I wanted to make sure my math was correct, and it was, yeah. And then so this would be only the 3rd time they've won 19 games over the course of the last 40 years. That's a big deal. Which is, but it's crazy because if you look at the history, if you actually do look at the history of Youngstown State, when back in the 70s as a Division II school, they're actually pretty good. It blows me away that those Youngstown State teams from the 70s are they were barn burners. It was insane. No, I'm not even joking. I mean, those were, yeah. I mean, it's insane because they had such a great run. I mean, because they started in the NAIA in the 50s and the 60s. Yeah, I mean, the 60s and 70s under Dom Roselli up until like 1981 when they jumped over to Division I. They started in Division I in 1981, so they've been there 39 years. But yeah, I mean, just looking at it, it's just like, yeah, and I'm looking through it. They had a 20-9 season under the late Dan Peters. John Robich got a 1911 season. Jerry Slocum didn't do anything. Jerry Slocum had one season where he was 18-16, and I think I was so. Yeah, so this would be the 4th time in the 39-year history that they've been in Division I that they'll have won 19 games. That's, and if you have the opportunity to do that and kind of as a signature of the progress that Youngstown State has made under Jared Calhoun, I'd do it. Do it. Absolutely. And do it in front of your home crowd too. Because they have been more than supportive of you.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I agree.
So, yeah. I know we skewed a little further off of where, I think that was it. I mean, because I mean, what more can we say about Wright State and Northern Kentucky that we haven't already said, other than to scare the crap out of both of their fan bases by saying there's a possibility they could lose. In all honesty, I think, like I said, I think Wright State is up to the. I think both teams are. Wright State especially is up to the task. I know UIC gives them headaches, but at the end of the day, Wright State is still Wright State. So I think they prevail, and I think Northern Kentucky might have a few bigger issues just because of the fact that they got a new coach. But I mean, the core has been there forever, so I don't know. I think they would just like I still do believe honestly, it will be a Wright State Northern Kentucky finals. Hopefully, I'm correct, but I could be wrong. I'm just throwing out the possibility that I could be wrong. So that's all I had. Anything else you want to add in there, John? Because we covered a lot of different things.
Not really.
We even threw in some Brian Wardle slander while we were at it.
Always.
Got to give the people what they want, man.
Yeah, crowd pleaser.
Yeah. So next week, John. I've got you back on again. You and Kyle will be on with us for Selection Sunday, so that ought to be fun. It may, and again, in the chaos scenario, even more fun than it already will be.
Ooh, I got one more thing.
Oh, one more thing.
If Wright State wins it, I'm just going to say to a certain Green Bay fan, they're going to be a 14 seed.
Really?
Yep.
You think they're going to be a 14? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I know that at least a couple of bracketologists thought they might be a 15 seed, and one even had them matched up against a certain team down the road called Dayton, which would be interesting, but, you know.
Yeah, if they're a 15, they're absolutely going to play Dayton.
Oh, that is good. And they're going to play Dayton in Cleveland. Bet. That will happen. It'll be Wright State and Dayton in Cleveland, which is funny because Dayton will never play Wright State either at Dayton or at Wright State, so they might as well just go to Cleveland. Can't dodge it now, can you, Dayton? So, I don't know. I don't want to see Obi Toppin. I mean, that kid can the ball. I'm afraid of that guy.
It's no worry. Dayton won't be a 3 seed.
They will not be a 3 seed. No. Oh, no, absolutely not. So, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, so that's going to do it for us, John. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Jumping on in. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you and Kyle next week. That should be fun because I know we'll probably have a little bit more information about who's going where. Probably not too much information, but anyway, that's all we got. As always, and I'm out of gas, so.
All right.
All right. So you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable on horizonroundtable.com. I'm sure John's going to write something this week. I don't doubt it. Kyle will probably have something up there too because he's obviously an indie for us. We haven't figured out what though, so but I'm sure it'll be something good.
The power rankings are going to be out tomorrow morning.
Okay, we're recording this on Sunday, so Monday morning. So yeah, so if you're listening to this after Monday morning, theoretically, you could say it's tomorrow morning. I mean, if you're listening to this on Wednesday and it's still not out yet, I mean, maybe, who knows?
It happens sometimes, but I'm pledging Monday morning.
So horizonroundtable.com, episodes of the podcast, what John's writing, what Kyle may be writing or recording. We haven't figured out yet, but it's gonna be good, I'm sure. You can also find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable on wherever podcasts are available. So that's gonna do it, and thank you all for listening.